review this morning. Please go check it out after this episode. It's very good. Actually, first go to Shadow Davis, then go check out my show. We'll get to that in a second. But it was an excellent episode. Arthur Pawlowski was sitting there talking about how there's scandals in the mist and how we need to find them, get rid of them, work on unity, move forward. A lot of good stuff. He has lots of experiences that he shared from the Lethbridge Courthouse, because he did come down a few times, and also a couple of things he had to say about the Coots man as well. And I'm very excited. I'm always excited to have good people on the show. Not only was Arthur awesome this morning, I now have Greg Wycliffe here. I am so pleased because we cover a lot of the similar stuff, but he goes really in depth, and he goes on YouTube, and he does a real great job, especially with production, and he's putting out there. I'm just a live streamer, but he's an actual content creator. Really excited to have a chat with him about what he's doing the last few years since the convoy, and also to talk about how there was this narrative around Diagon and the Coots situation. If you listen to the media early in 2022, February, when it came out with that announcement and on, especially if you listen to that guy on Rebel, you strongly would think that Diagon had something to do with what was going on in the Coots matter. Turns out they didn't. I was there for the whole time, pre-trial, trial. I can tell you what came in, what didn't come in, what they talked about, what they didn't talk about, what they found, what they didn't find. And then we can also get into some of the details with Greg. So without further ado, let's go ahead and have him on. Good evening.
Wow, what an introduction. Man, you're a content creator too. What are you talking about? You're saying you're not a content creator.
I'm taking the baby steps. I'm getting there.
You got a camera, you got a mic. You got a better mic than I do. Come on.
This is a gift from a fan, somebody that watches the show early, so I didn't even buy that. But no, I'm getting there. But I must be getting there because you're the pretty girl of the ball right now. Everybody wants you on their show, and we had to work out some schedules this week. So I'm really excited that Shadow and you're going to be on Shadows on Friday, and I'm really glad that we get to talk tonight. And you must be doing something right if you're getting on everybody's show now.
I mean, I appreciate your glowing, thank you. I'm just reaching out to people who I know are friendly to the cause and who get it. And you were saying earlier that I really look in depth in this stuff. I'm excited to talk to you because I don't understand the Coots situation as well as I should. As someone who is trying to champion the political prisoners in Canada, the dust has not even settled from the trucker convoy. No. We're still dealing with all sorts of insanity, and I haven't been able to keep up with all of it. I have not been able at all to keep up with all the details, all the BS. Like I was watching a clip from your show this morning of, am I to understand that Artur Pawlowski got some sort of weird technical charge? The reason he got arrested on the highway was because of some trespassing charge having to do with mail. Did I get that right? Am I understanding that correctly?
I think it's complicated. He's been arrested so many times. But I think what you're talking about when he was on the highway on his knees or dragging him away, I think that was related to COVID. But yeah, he's had a lot of issues where he has now been trespassed from the post office. He had to get the police involved to get his mail. It was about to turn into criminal issues because they were withholding his mail. Like, this man has a lot going on. Yeah. Let me tell you a quick one, just to give you an idea of how much they pick on him. For like 20 years, he was at the same spot in Calgary preaching on the street. Same spot, between the same tree.
Too. Feeding the homeless.
Correct.
As well. Yes.
Yep.
Wasn't just preaching.
Correct. Yeah, feeding people. He got a bunch of tickets. They harassed him to the point where they put porta potties on his spot. This is how they've now responded. So to take that spot he's been at for 20 years, they want to put porta potties there for the good of the public, I'm sure, right? But specifically right where he had his thing set up. That's how petty this gets for him.
Yeah, no, it's I remember hearing about Artur Pawlowski right before COVID happened, and the Street Advocate. I watched his documentary. It's fascinating. He already knows about the corruption in this parliament even before the big COVID stuff. But yeah, there's I'm maybe we can talk about the Coots stuff because I'm still sort of trying to come up to speed. Two of them got out, and
agreements.
Were clear of all charges. Is that right?
No, they took a plea. So you're referring to Jerry Morin and Chris Lysyk. Right. So February 2024, so not too long ago, earlier this year, they took a plea. We'll start with Chris Lysyk because it's the easiest one. Okay. He took a plea that he had his registered firearm, so it was legal, but it was loaded and improperly stored. So that's the charge he
Okay.
he agreed with. So he took a plea on that. He got time served. I'm sure it would have been like a ticket in a normal world. It wouldn't have been other than that, but he took time served on that one. Jerry Morin, he took a plea agreement shortly after hearing about Lysak doing a plea agreement. He didn't know about the details, so his deal is very different. It's a very different lawyer, and his plea agreement was a confession, or at least a plea to conspiracy to traffic weapons for a dangerous purpose. And then he provided some details about Chris and Tony and their involvement in that. So that was his plea. So slightly different. He actually pled to something a little bit more conspiracy related and dangerous purpose and weapons related, but it was conspiracy. He didn't plead to actually trafficking anything. He pled to talking about or conspiracy to do it, but not actually doing it. So when you look at the bigger picture, did Jerry move firearms? No, he didn't plead to that. He just pled to contemplating and talking about it. And then he got time served and released as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for that summary. This is
no worries,
because I can tell you've been paying attention to this for some time now, and it's good to know the actual facts of the matter. And I think it goes without saying that they did not at all deserve to be in jail for this long. Like it's just absurd. It's insane. And I don't know. Do you disagree with that, or?
It's complicated. Okay. So if we're on Facebook, I'm selecting relationship status complicated on this one. It's complicated. Was there illegal activity? The jury says yes. Was there issues that we saw in the trial?
Is this all four of them together? Should we go to the other two, or is that or what?
Yeah, fair enough. So two of them are off the table as of February. Okay. They weren't in the trial. They made their plea. So fair enough. So we'll refer to just Carbert and Olenek because they stood trial. Mm-hmm. In that one, there was stuff that came forward that I think if you heard it for what it is, you'd be like, interesting. There were some admissions. There were some confessions. There was some agreed statement of facts put on the record, which did lead Chris Carbert to enter a direction to the jury to find him guilty on mischief. So when we all say they didn't do anything criminal, Chris Carbert disagrees with you because he did plead guilty for mischief. So the criminal charge of mischief. He pled not guilty to weapons for a dangerous purpose for sure. And he pled not guilty to conspiracy to commit murder. Tony pled not guilty to all of that.
Sorry. Before we go, mischief in this case is what exactly? Because I'm confused.
Blocking the border and the highway. The pleasure and the use of the border and the highway.
Okay. So being part of the blockade.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct. And that in Alberta, because Marco van Hugenbos, Alex van Herk, and George Jensen, who were considered the leaders, they were called the Coots Trio. They had their trial by jury for mischief and mischief only. They weren't charged with anything else. And that's where it's basically been set precedence-wise in Alberta, that aiding, abetting, counseling, or participating is enough to be found guilty of that. Because all three of those gentlemen were found guilty by jury.
And this is for specifically blocking the highway.
Yeah, in fact, these three gentlemen didn't even have a vehicle involved. They were just the facilitators, logistics operators, not even organizers. That's the wrong term. There's certainly a spokesperson, especially for Marco. But no, Marco, Alex, and George, it wasn't proven in their trial that they had a vehicle involved. In fact, the closing for the Crown said these gentlemen didn't have a vehicle involved. However, they're the ones that helped make the decisions. So,
right.
Guilty.
And someone in my chat, I was going to ask about this. Someone said, "What's in the envelope?" I remember hearing about this
Everybody asked.
What about the envelope? What's going on?
I can tell you, it's crime fraud. That's what's in that envelope. Now, specifically, what's in that envelope that makes it crime fraud hasn't been provided to people.
So treat me like I'm 5. I'm a dummy. What is crime fraud?
Great question. Crime fraud is when a lawyer, so you have to be a lawyer, it can't just be the rest of us, gives legal advice, has to be legal advice, and it has to be advice that leads to the commission of a crime. So that's called crime fraud. It's a hyphenated term because it's specifically that. Lawyer, legal advice, commission of a crime. So what's accused or alleged.
The advice leads to the commission of a crime.
Yeah. So if your lawyer told you how to murder somebody and get away with it, that's crime fraud.
So this would be a document. So in the envelope is a letter from a lawyer that says like, hey, look what this lawyer told this person to do.
Kind of better than that. It's a page out of the notes of the one of the RCMP officers, the main one who was working on the ITOs and the warrant stuff. He was a lead officer that had the designation to be able to do wiretap warrants and other things. His notes, one page from his notes that contains, I'm told, 7 lines, that was accidentally disclosed. It was supposed to be redacted. It accidentally wasn't redacted. He provided notes on what the defense attorneys, 4 of them, called crime fraud after they read it and received it.
So this would be the Crown prosecutor lawyer?
Correct. So specifically Stephen Johnston, because he had to be excluded from the application around this. So the Crown's office had to send a different prosecutor to defend the Crown's office on the application, because specifically Stephen Johnston, the client is the RCMP. And the client, RCMP, will not waive a confidentiality or privilege. So currently, this envelope is sitting under the client solicitor privilege and is sealed.
And will there be justice to this? Would this have to be a separate, court proceedings? Is it right? Okay, so
yeah.
It'll be a long time before we see any sort of real. Do you think justice will be served in this instance of the RCMP being?
It has to be. Yeah, they have to clear this allegation of crime fraud. So either they have to clear the Crown's office or hold them accountable. You can't leave this one in limbo. But to get there, it requires a successful application in front of the justice, and I believe it has to be the justice who sealed it, so David Lebrun's, and he has to be convinced that it needs to be opened. Who can open it? Well, media can put a request in. I'm sure if CBC said, hey, look, we want to open this for public interest, they could. The Attorney General or somebody from the Minister's office could, here for justice, to open it up, see what's going on. Mm-hmm. The Crown's office themselves could put an application in to go for accountability's sake or even for reputation's sake, deal with it. Common Joe could walk in there with a good enough argument, and if you can convince the justice to open it, they will. So it's currently sitting in a desk somewhere in the Lethbridge courthouse to be determined on what's going to happen with it. There's a talk amongst friends of ours, people that we both know, that wants to raise some money to go ahead and do exactly that. Go get a lawyer, walk into a courtroom, and make some valid arguments to get it open. So I do think it will happen one day.
Wow. Okay, so let's move on. My head's trying to retain all of this information. Let's move on to the fourth Coots man. Did we cover him yet?
So the last 2?
Yeah.
So Tony Olenek and Chris Carbert. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your question kind of said, no illegal activities, and I was kind of humming and hawing a little bit because we can't really say completely innocent. Chris asked for a guilty verdict on mischief, and the jury certainly found Tony guilty on everything except for conspiracy to commit murder, which includes an explosive charge. Whether or not they deserve to be in there is a whole other conversation. I don't think so. I think that they should have been able to have bail from day one, do their trial, go through the sentencing, and then maybe there's some sort of detention because you're innocent until proven guilty. But in this particular matter, 4 men went in for over 2 years. And then the other 2 are still in there right now. In fact, they got moved to the Calgary facility, and we're trying to wait to find out if they're moving to Drumheller, which is where the violent criminals go, because they're considered violent at this stage.
The Drum. Yeah, I've heard of it. Well, and that was really my point. It's even if there is some guilty actions going on here, they were clearly used to fit a government narrative, to drag it out as long as possible, and to kind of continue this argument. To me, that doesn't sound like a sound justice system. It still sounds like these people were being used as pawns, being used as kind of poster childs to try and create a certain narrative. It's my understanding that the justice system is supposed to find the truth of the matter and to see who's guilty and who's not. And instead, they kind of made matters much worse. Try to make examples of these men, and I mean, to be fair, it does strike intimidation into people. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like it's. I think for anybody in Coutts, Alberta, this idea that the government is acting lawfully and that it has anything other than to do with power is kind of completely out the window. I think they kind of understand. They have a pretty cynical view, I would say. Would you agree with that?
Correct, 100%.
Yeah.
And it's not just the judicial system, which we want to call the justice system, but it's really a legal system. There's very little justice right now. And it's also law enforcement as well. We have a big problem here in Alberta with law enforcement, specifically the RCMP. There's a lot of trouble that came out in the trial around them as well.
Well, yeah. the envelope doesn't sound too hot for the RCMP either.
No. It's got both players in it, the RCMP and the Crown, specifically Stephen Johnston. I would want, if I was them, I would want to clear the air. I would want to, hey, no, this is being misunderstood by 4 highly talented lawyers. Well, 3 plus 1. But in either case, 4 defense lawyers stood up and said, no, putting my reputation on the line. This is crime fraud. We need to proceed with it as crime fraud. It was a full application. It took a week for the arguments. It was expensive for everybody involved, but these lawyers put their reputation on the line and said, we need to go through this because that's what this is. This is crime fraud.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you currently feel about, is there still like a publication ban on this story? Because I remember that was a big issue, big problem for even telling people the truth of what's going on. Is that still in effect?
Great question. Okay, so there's 3 publication bans. There's one that's the criminal code one that covers jury trials. So once a defendant or accused elects to have a jury trial, if it is a jury trial, there's an automatic publication ban that goes in place where nothing can be publicized that isn't in front of the jury. So that means pre-trial before the jury is selected, nothing can go out. And I've gotten my hand slapped on that one already.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is this chronological, these different publication bans? Because you're talking about the jury one first.
Chronological, maybe not, but just weeks apart. Because when the election for jury comes up, that's when that goes in. I guess technically, chronologically, the very first publication ban is the defense application for a publication ban on the information to obtain, the ITOs. This is what came out early. This has the narrative, including Diagon, and we'll get to that. And this is what CBC and the rest were running with. And because they were running with that ITO information, the defense asked for a ban on it and got one. So that would be chronologically the first one. The second one would be the jury one. And then the third one would be the crime fraud envelope one. So there's a publication ban around the contents of that and the decision of that one. So we're not going to talk about the decision that the judge gave. I wasn't even there. It was a closed private court. And I don't know the contents of that one. So we're not violating it. The jury one, so the second one chronologically.
I'm trusting you on this one. Okay.
Well, it'll follow my head. I'm hosting you, so it'll follow my head.
All right.
But the second one, it came off when the jury went into the deliberation. So as soon as the jury was deliberating, which means they're locked into a room until they decide, that ban got lifted. So immediately we could start talking about pre-trial stuff and everything except for the ITO and the crime fraud envelope. We still couldn't go into the details of that one.
Whew. Wow.
It's complicated. Like I said, Facebook status, complicated. It's complicated.
Yeah, no. I do appreciate this though, because it is, it's part of our history now. And it is a kind of complex confluence of different things going on. The media, the RCMP, and some guys from Alberta trying to do the right thing.
And let me tell you how I learned my lesson on the publication ban. I did an episode 50 minutes long. The very next day, the Crown had that episode ready for the judge. They had timestamps. They were unhappy with 2 portions of my video that totaled a minute and a half. So 2 portions that totaled a minute and a half is all that the Crown had a problem with. The rest of my video was fine. Because I'm doing my best to not give details. I'm trying to stay high level, like, here's what we're trying to do in court, and here's why we're doing this process. They were fine with all of that. The details that they had a problem with, and I can say this now because that trial's over, is I said that there's 2 applications being argued this week. So that was the first violation. saying that there's 2 applications. It's too much detail. And then I named the 2 applications. So the first application was an application to notify the jury that they can ask questions. I'm not joking. There was an application and lawyers argued on whether or not the judge should tell the jury that they can ask questions. And just to spoil it, the decision was no. So the jury was not told they can ask questions. The second application was whether or not the jury can be notified that they can nullify their verdict. Nullification means voting your conscience versus the law. And spoiler alert, no, they were not successful with that application either. So the jury was not told that. My violation and my publication ban concern for the Crown was the number of applications, 2, and then the names of them. I didn't go into details about what it was or the arguments, but I stayed higher level. So what the Crown tried to do, Stephen Johnston, you're going to hear that name a lot, he asked the judge to allow them to charge me for not just a publication ban violation under the criminal code, which is a summary offense up to 6 months. He wanted me charged with a court order violation, so section 127. That's 2 years imprisonment. So he asked the judge to consider providing, I guess, direction to him to have me charged under not publication ban violation, a court order violation. The judge said, well, I want to watch the whole video then. He doesn't want to watch just the parts that the Crown wants him to watch. He goes, I want to watch the whole video then. So that's exactly what happened. We all had an adjournment. He watched an episode of mine. It was 50 minutes long. Judge comes back. Yes, this is in the Marco Alex George court.
And is this in the same times like for a Coots trial, we're having this like parallel sort of thing to do whether or not you violated a publication ban or not?
Yes. So Marco Alex George trial, I'm the first piece of evidence and I'm the first judicial decision of that trial. Because it started Monday and I said this on Tuesday. Actually, no, I said it Monday night. So then the court stuff was Tuesday morning.
Mm-hmm.
That's how quickly
so then they almost
happened.
paused the trial to be like, okay, let's see if we're going to charge this journalist or not with a publication ban.
Correct. The entire day Tuesday, if you look at the official record, there's no business on Tuesday except for the publication ban violation potential of this journalist. That whole day was that.
I'm speechless. I don't know much about the law to begin with, but
Yep.
you know, this is And
They think it's
yeah. How did that play out? Were you guilty?
well, the judge watched the whole video and he was firm but kind. So his decision was no, he's not going to recommend. I'm not even banned. What they're going to do is they're going to put my video in as evidence. And if it happens again, it will then be used to address it if it happens again. Mm-hmm. But his comments were, he tried to stay within the bounds of the publication ban, but failed miserably. That was his comment. And he goes, if you watch it in its entirety, he wasn't blatantly trying to do it. He needs to be more careful type of thing. And I certainly learned because I went back to those 2 spots that the Crown said was a problem. And I went and re-listened to them. And it literally was me saying how many applications and the names of them. The rest of my show, he was fine with.
Wow.
So I learned my lesson, like specifically stay away from any details.
I would argue, though, you didn't really, that doesn't sound like you failed miserably. It sounds like they got you on a couple technical faults there. That doesn't seem like a huge fail. I wouldn't call that failing miserably, just to, you know.
No, I would agree with you, but I think he was firm because he kind of needed to maybe send a message and maybe to give the Crown a little bit of something. Yeah, he failed miserably, but no, he's not recommending charges. So I didn't get banned. I was allowed to stay. You know, he looked at me while he was giving his decision there. I sat there through it. I wasn't signaled out. Like during this whole event, they just said podcaster in person. But I knew who it was because I was told before that it was coming. And I sat there and listened to it. Everybody knew what was going on. But
what was that moment like for you? So what was that moment like? You were literally in court watching your own show as evidence.
Well, they didn't play it in court. We adjourned, and the judge went and watched it himself privately.
Okay. While he's eating lunch or something. Okay.
Kind of. Well, the morning was, hey, we have this problem. Then we adjourned to watch it. Then we came back after lunch, and then we had some decisions. It was surreal. I'll be honest with you. It didn't hit me until a couple days after, though.
Right.
After kind of digest for a bit, and I realized how close I was for being criminally charged for trying to do this work. Then it hit me, and it was rough. I actually took a little bit of time to kind of address it.
Did the judge say anything about, because it sounds like the Crown prosecutor for the RCMP tried to throw the book at you and say, okay, not only did he violate this non-publication, but let's also charge him for a 2-year charge for, what was it again?
Court order violation. Because at the beginning of the trial, the judge says, yes, we're putting publication ban in. That's considered a court order. And they wanted to get me under that instead.
Did the judge say anything about that charge that they tried to, like, that No, he didn't break it down like that. He just basically said, I'm not going to make that recommendation. I'm not taking any action, but we're going to hold on to this. And if it happens again, then of course it's going to be like double trouble or something. But he made it pretty clear, don't come close to that line again. And I didn't. Did you have any moment throughout all of this reporting Coots day after day that you thought, man, this is just way too much trouble for me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. We almost shut the show down. We almost didn't go. Right before the main trial, there were some decisions on our side. Like we put tens of thousands of dollars into doing this from our own bank account. Yeah. And when it came to the point where I could be losing access to my family for a while, for what? Mm-hmm. I'm paying for this. I'm doing this work. There's a small group of people who are making my life difficult. And by the way, the Crown was really clear at the beginning of their, hey, judge, we have something. They didn't say we learned of. We were told of. So this little group that likes to make a lot of headaches put it to the Crown that I was talking about this stuff. The Crown wasn't watching. They received a tip. Yeah, we know where the tip came from. But yes, absolutely. I have a group of people that are trying to end my show, end my life. I've received death threats and just end it all. And I still have to walk into that courtroom with them there and do that work. So absolutely. I'm not going to lie, even close. We reconsidered things.
Oh,
there's Betty right there.
Hey, Betty.
I was given the okay to bring up the envelope at a town hall meeting with Danielle Smith. Right on, Betty. I believe the answer from Danielle, knowing Danielle, something, Arthur Pulowski, something, another day. That's likely her response to Betty on that one.
Right.
Because she's not touching this for a while.
Yeah.
She totally skirted my question.
Not surprising.
There you go, Betty.
Did you see this clip? Speaking of Danielle Smith, this is kind of a viral clip, so maybe we'll liven it up and detox from the lawyer talk for just a minute. Did you see this clip of the what is it? The MLA in
Jennifer something?
Jennifer who was basically going through this struggle session with this transgender person being re-educated, and this is part of Danielle Smith's team. Part of her.
I'm blown away. So somebody leaked the Global TV coverage of this from yesterday. It wasn't online. Global didn't put it online. It was only on live TV. Somebody recorded it, came out. It's quite literally the same thing that we're seeing with Jordan Peterson. They want to re-educate her. She needs to be more sensitive to LGBTQ, plus, negative exclamation point, like whatever they're called now. She's doing that, and I'm just blown away.
Plus, negative. I've never heard that one. That's good. I'm going to take that.
I'm just trying to be as inclusive as I can with all those pluses. And that negative is, of course, guys like you and I. We don't belong in that group, and that's their choice. Yeah. But no, it reminds me of Jordan Peterson, re-education, and this shouldn't be happening with Danielle Smith, but it is. I'm shocked.
Well, it's the worst of the worst stuff that you could imagine, and the fact that it's happening under Danielle Smith, who I will admit has been one of the most vocal conservative voices in the country. You know, she has said some great things. That it's, you know, although I don't think she's doing everything she can, and I think that she might just be a corrupt globalist feeding us what we want to hear. She has at least said some of the right things on the microphone, and it's just very disappointing when it's like, when you look into it, it's like, oh, this person seems just as bad as our political enemies. You know, it's like 2 + 2 = 5. Say trans women are women. It's crazy.
It's an interesting version. It's not conservative, not even close to conservative. What she's doing,
I think it's antithetical to logic and reason and just basic truths. It's definitely not conservative. No.
Right. So she now leads the United Compromising Party, because that's what she's been doing, is doing a lot of compromising. She's not convicted. She's not conservative. She's compromising a lot right now. And that includes doing this to one of her own MLAs.
Yeah. It's nuts. I was just going to say, like, in the future, if we don't win this cultural political battle in the future, we'll be on trial, have one hand on the Bible. I solemnly swear that trans women are women, and I will tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help me, Baphomet. Just trying to lighten the mood here a bit.
I don't think you're wrong, because one of the first shocks that happened in the Carver trial was the judge coming out and apologizing because he said to the jury, "Ladies and gentlemen." So he apologized because we're supposed to be saying members of the jury. And he caught himself a couple times saying "ladies and gentlemen."
That's what he's going to apologize for. Out of all the things you can apologize for. Hey, sorry you guys were in remand for, geez. Oh, man, you know what? I set the timer, totally forgot about it. They're not going to say sorry about that. Oh, whoops, I said ladies and gentlemen.
Correct. And then he slipped back into it. For about a week, he was still doing it. And then obviously there's another conversation, because I think he eventually had a Post-it note, because a couple of times I saw him look down and then say members. So a little reminder to remind the judge, be woke. Make sure you're woke and sensitive, because of course people are losing their minds, right?
Where are the priorities? It's crazy.
I can say this now, but Marco van Hugenbos, have you had a chat with him yet? Have you had him on your show yet?
No, Marco van Hugenbos.
You should.
Okay.
Hugenbos. Yeah. So he was the main spokesperson during the convoy thing, or the Coots blockade, all the rebel videos. It's Marco talking. You should have him on. What he did was he did a post on X talking about Barbara Perry and how she's being looked at as a potential witness. And then he also mentioned that he thinks he's going to get in trouble for this post. Well, he did. The Crown brought that post to the judge of Marco's own trial. Okay, it's his own trial. So the judge had to say to him, basically, stop posting. You're violating publication ban. You can't talk about that kind of stuff. So he got in trouble there.
What was his trial about for Marco?
Mischief as the leaders for.
Oh, he's one of the Coots three. Oh, okay.
Yep, the Coots trio. Yep. So Marco, Alex, and George. Yeah, okay. Lots of moving parts, my friend.
Yeah,
this is why you have to be there for a lot of this.
The reason why my ears perked up is we've talked about Barbara Perry at SaveFreeSpeech.ca before. She is a contributor to AntiHate.ca, which is part of this far left coalition, this network of people who try to create immediate consequences for people with the wrong opinions by smearing their reputations and working with the media to proliferate those smears to just villainize people like us or people who have the wrong politics. So it's interesting that he was wrongfully concerned about. What did he specifically do? Did he kind of discredit Barbara Perry? What was his?
Yeah, basically, he just called her racist. He just basically called her racist, and how disgusting it was to listen to her talk in the pre-trial. It was horrible. The judge, the sheriffs, everybody in there, according to Barbara Perry, is racist. And it got so bad that the judge told the Crown. Do we have
transcripts of this?
Yeah, it's going to be in the transcripts. Yes, if they were ordered, they'll be there. Pre-trial.
When will they be available?
I'm working on it. And Betty's listening too. There's a lot of people working on trying to get transcripts, the economical way to do it, all that kind of stuff.
But if there's anyone who did appreciate the apology from the judge, it would be Barbara. It's like, thank you so much for giving non-binary language. That's exactly what we need. We avoided violence today.
Right.
God.
Right. But after she was doing things like, if you're Christian, you're racist, you're extremist. If you're against the government in any way, that means the entire opposition party, you're racist. Like her checklist for being racist wasn't, you didn't have to hit 5 items and then you're racist. You had to hit any or all.
The threshold is pretty low. Have white skin. Right. Done. You're racist.
Yep. So the judge did say to the Crown, you may want to reconsider this witness. And he mentioned it twice. Yeah. And he mentioned it twice.
Was this before she said all this, anti-white stuff on trial, or?
It was after. It wasn't on trial. It was pre-trial. So whether or not she could be a witness was being challenged.
Okay.
So the Crown wanted to bring her. as an expert witness. And the defense is like, she's not an expert. She's a racist.
So she was a witness as some overweight woman, like with her cats somewhere. That's how she's a witness. She's a witness. Like, how is she a witness? Because she has an opinion on white people being evil.
Because they gave her.
She's an expert, right?
That's correct, and that's the problem.
Right.
Right, and that's why it was argued, because she was given a copy of like the phone data and stuff like that, and then she was supposed to create a report to say how she can prove that these gentlemen are racist. Turns out her report totally let Chris Carbert off the hook, because there's like no text messages where Chris is doing anything. Like, you're going to be blown away that the evidence for Chris was so.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Are we still live?
Wow, that was weird. I've never had my. We're back.
We're back.
I've never had my browser do that before. I must be treading on some territory here. Where do we leave off here? That was surprising.
We were talking about how she's an expert. She has cats. She's a little bit overweight. She's a donut expert. No, she's we were talking about.
Oh, right, Chris Carbert.
Chris Carbert. Yeah.
There was no evidence.
If I'm not mistaken, he was somebody charged and like he wasn't even there or something, right?
This is what we found during the trial. We're jumping around a little bit, but this is fun. So the undercover manager who spoke to and debriefed the undercovers, he created daily debriefs and notes, and then he created a report or a summary for his higher ups. Working with just that, his notes and his report to the higher ups. Chris Carbert wasn't part of these conversations, only Tony. It was after trial time, all this kind of stuff, getting close to trial, prepping for trial. All of a sudden, this narrative popped up that's not in the notes, that Chris was part of these conversations all of a sudden. So that did happen. We saw that.
So, I mean, is that some sort of fraud when they kind of like insert? Oh yeah, and Chris was in this group chat too when he wasn't. What is that? Is that not fraudulent? Is that not something nefarious that needs to be addressed?
What that is are excellent questions that need to be answered. Correct. Absolutely. There's a lot that came out during the trial. Didn't match the evidence. Testimony changed, especially around the undercovers, and because. A lion's share of the culpability for the men were based on what the undercovers said. It wasn't messages really pulled off their phones, or it wasn't phone calls. All the really nasty stuff isn't verbalized anywhere except for by the undercover operatives. No recording, according to them. They all testified that they didn't have recording devices. All three testified to that.
Really?
Yeah, big.
Really?
Sure.
Really?
Right.
So wait, these are the known undercover RCMP people.
Correct.
And this is the thing. Like, hi, I was working undercover for the RCMP, and I have no recordings. I didn't record anything. Really?
So they say. Yep.
Wasn't part of the. I remember hearing way back at the beginning of this, that they did have a recording of one of the guys saying something nefarious or bad, and so that ended up not being true. There wasn't any sort of like phone clip or audio clip that they were using against these guys initially.
Okay, so there's one, and I think it's called Intercept 139. So 139 of all the intercepts they did, where it sounds like Tony is talking in code about bringing more stuff there. So
what is the intercept though? Where did this capture?
It's a phone call between Tony and another gentleman named Kyle Mohan, I think it was. And
how
if
did
you
they
listen
get
to
access to this?
That guy who got the crime fraud envelope, that officer who screwed up and provided the disclosure when it should have been redacted, that officer had the power to do what's called a 184-4 warrant under the criminal code, which is an intimate harm one. It basically means we don't have time to go talk to a judge, so we're going to implement a warrant, which is an intercept of communications, a wiretap warrant. And they can initiate that based on what they call intimate harm without a judge. And that's what they did.
So the joke that all of our phone calls are tapped is like not really even a joke. It's kind of accurate.
Dude, we're just getting started. Like there's a more to that particular issue that you're highlighting there on whether or not they're always listening.
Wow. So it's not a meme, guys. It's kind of real. It's kind of a real thing. Our phones are probably tapped. Good to know. I've always assumed it as a joke. So haha, it's just a joke, CSIS. But now it's like, I guess I feel like maybe I'm not a schizo. Maybe, this is just crazy. Okay. Whew.
I can't tell you where I got this next piece of information, but I can tell you I have this piece of information. There's some information in one of the ITOs that the police could not have had legally. The date of it is February 2nd. The intercept was put in on the 9th or the 10th. So it means, because they ended up having it, it means either one, they violated the warrant and went into the phone. It's an intercept warrant, which means they can intercept your messages, but they can't enter your phone. So any phone calls or text messages that you send, they can intercept.
What about what about like a WhatsApp call that is not through Yeah,
they can't get it.
Okay. So
it's encrypted. It's encrypted.
So it's more secure. Good to know. Not that I'm doing anything illegal, but come on. It's just a nice kind of like comforting thing to know that I'm not being listened to by some RCMP officer giving them something.
No, let's be clear. You're likely listened to. Whether or not it's admissible evidence in court, different question. Okay.
Couldn't they just bug can they bug the phone to just have the microphone on anyway? Could potentially?
Oh yeah. yeah. There's a project out there. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but it exists. The second option
my
is
schizo brain is just totally running wild right now. So
it should, because they had a no problem. You're not sleeping tonight. They had they had a message from February 2nd that they shouldn't have had. So either A, they were intercepting everybody's messages on or before February 2nd. So everybody's messages that were down there using the cell tower, they could have been intercepting.
2nd. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Now there is testimony in court by Chris Carbert that they witnessed RCMP mucking around with one of the cell phone towers down there with a provider, so like TELUS or something like that, also there. So there's testimony about that. So they could have been intercepting everybody's. Doesn't make it admissible. Okay, doesn't make it admissible.
What does
but it doesn't mean
like allowed and legal?
Right. Okay. And then the second one was, or they got into phones and then actually looked at older messages because they're not intercepted, but they got it. Because they ended up with a message from February 2nd, put it into an ITO before they had the warrants. So how did you get that message? Before they had the phone. So there's only one way. Well, there's two ways: intercepting everybody, or you went into the phone illegally. In either case, they kind of screwed up. The person that wrote the ITO was using all information available to them, and one of the pieces wasn't supposed to be used because it's not admissible. It's not legal. So we have that information.
So where are we at here in terms of like RCMP strikes from the Crown, in terms of like strikes as in like things that were unlawful that the RCMP or the Crown prosecutor did in this case? Like, because is that one of them? Is that something that's technically what's the word?
That's
Unlawful
technically illegal.
Malfeasance? What's is there a legal term for this?
Charter violation, completely illegal to our highest laws. Yeah, all of the above. So in addition to that, there's the crime fraud. There's the excavators that they damaged private property on private property. They don't even hide that. They're blatant about that one. They brag about it. So that was a criminal mischief of over $5,000.
This is what the RCMP did.
Mm-hmm.
They destroyed.
Yeah, that was February 12th.
They destroyed someone's private property. This was the day that the Emergencies Act was enacted. Then
no. So this was February 12th.
The day before.
2 days before.
2 days before.
Emergency Act was Valentine's Day, February 14th. My birthday, by the way, so I remember it clearly.
So
February 12th is when they provoked by damaging the excavators. They didn't get the response that they wanted, but yeah, they went onto private property, damaged private property. They didn't, and they admitted on the stand, this was during pre-trial, no lawful warrant and no lawful authorization. And then this was repeated again in the trial by Superintendent Colbert. They had no approval to do that, no lawful authority to do it, but they did it. So there's that one. There's violation of the search itself. The searches themselves are deemed to be illegal by the judge. So both warrants got thrown out because they were both illegal. So those were no good. But during the search themselves, they were violating the procedures all over the place. The ERT team, emergency response team, that's supposed to clear the room so that the search people that can come in and start taking their pictures. The ERT team was moving stuff around and planting and staging things. So they took stuff around the house, put it together on a bed, and when the search team comes in, it's like, oh, look, they're all ready to go. Yeah,
so how do we know that the ERT team was doing this?
They testified to it. They testified to it. They also testified they made mistakes. They shouldn't have moved it. They should have let them take a picture first. They testified to bringing pizza, walking around eating pizza during the search. It's a crime scene. You're not allowed to do that. It's against the rules. They testified to it.
And so tell me why this is like, what were they moving around? What were they doing?
Okay, so one example that you'll get it when I tell you this. So Chris had a firearm under his bed. Okay. He had in his closet, he had a knapsack with ammo. Okay. And what they did was they took the firearm, which was not with the ammo, put it on the bed, put it with the ammo, put it with a sticker that said fringe minority or something like that. And that's how the search team found it. But that was done by the ERT team. So when you walk in, you're like, oh, look, there's a gun.
That's so tacky. Hey, here's a gun. Here's the ammo.
Dude, they put the wrong caliber. Wrong caliber.
Man, and they disrespected gun owners on top of that.
And that's just one example. They did that in a few places. Tony's property search, there's memorabilia from World War II missing. His dad was in World War II. There's memorabilia missing. Why is it missing? Because they left the 50 caliber ammo. So he's had some empty 50 caliber souvenirs. Sure. They left that to show the jury, look, they have 50 caliber too. That's huge. It's like tank stuff. Sure. But they don't show the rest of the World War II memorabilia that it was found with. But the rest of that memorabilia is gone. It's gone. It's nowhere to be found.
This is just validating everything I've heard about these. All the worst possible things you could imagine about the RCMP. Is the ERT team part of the RCMP?
Yes, the emergency response team. They're kind of like SWAT. Their job is to go in there heavy-handed. It was the ERT team
set up the worst possible photo op for their political enemies.
So in Coots, Joanne, well, maybe just a couple. Like maybe there's a couple bad seeds here. Joanne Person's property in Coots, staging. Tony's property in Stavely, Alberta, which is 200 kilometers away, staging. Willful destruction of private property, mischief over 5,000. It was the ERT team. This is all testimony from them. They did that. Like anytime ERT team's involved, something weird's going on that shouldn't be happening.
So let's get into the Diagon stuff, and then that infamous photo of look at this stockpile of weapons. How did that photo come to be? Is it related to this ERT stuff?
It didn't make it to the trial, that photo.
Nothing in that photo was involved in the trial.
No. Let's be clear. The picture was not involved in the trial. Okay. 6 of the firearms in that photo is attributed to 3 of the men in the trailer, 2 each for Carbert, Tony, and Chris Lysick. Chris Carbert, he had a 223 Panther Arms something. It's a prohibited weapon, but it is a semi-automatic 223. He had that. We'll get to that in a second.
So
that was a mistake.
If it's prohibited, does that mean it's a completely illegal? It's not just a restricted firearm. It's like not okay to even have at all, or is it?
So the order in council from Trudeau, he made this really long list. It's not even passed law. It's just an order in council that made a prohibited firearms list. It's basically anything that looks like AR style, AR at all.
Okay, so it recently became illegal. Is that fair?
Relatively recently. Yeah, it hasn't become illegal. It's on a prohibited list.
Okay,
if you owned
I'm sorry for all the gun owners watching. Oh, this guy doesn't know anything. I'm a beginner here. Okay, I'm still learning.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Chris shouldn't have had it because he actually also has a prohibition to not own restricted and prohibited firearms. He's allowed to have non-restricted, but he has a prohibition for life not to touch the other ones. He shouldn't have had it. There is a whole story around whether or not he knew it was a prohibited firearm when he purchased it.
Okay.
There's a story there. But, well, he's doing his time for that one. I guarantee you that. The other one he had was a non-restricted MCR semi-automatic 223 as well. So non-restricted, totally legal. And he had his pal, totally legal. Okay. And totally legal to have, too, with him. It's non-restricted. He's allowed to. Those are the only 2 that Chris had. Tony had a lever action 22. Rimfire 22. lever action, and he had a 12-gauge shotgun with no shells. There were no shells found in the trailer. So Tony had a 22 and no shells. Super violent and dangerous, right? Chris Lysick had an MCR similar to Chris Carbert's MCR, which is a 223, and he also had a 45 handgun, which was restricted, and that's the restricted handgun that he should not have had there, and that's what he took his plea on. Okay. That was all of the firearms in that trailer. The other 9 firearms on that table in that photograph, other people's.
Okay. Wow. Thanks for that summary. So let's talk about the Diagolon patch.
So the Diagolon patch, first, the word Diagolon was not said during the trial. The Crown made a decision, and this is after the Hategate article came out. The Crown made a decision to not go ahead with that narrative of Diagolon anymore.
Hold on. So Hategate came out around a year ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. So in the middle of all of this. So at the beginning, those ITOs that we spoke about, Diagolon is every third word in there. Death is every third word, and happening now.
This is all before the trial even started.
Correct. That's what they lost their bail applications on, was that.
That's what they lost their bail applications on.
Mm-hmm.
They lost
all 4 men applied for bail.
And they lost it based on the Diagolon narrative.
Right. So a Canadian Anti-Hate Network document was provided by the Crown to the justices, because there's 2 different justices that did the bail for the 4 men. And a Vice Media article was provided as proof that Diagolon's dangerous, all that kind of stuff. And that was used to tie these men to a nationwide terrorist organization, domestic. And that's why they were so dangerous, they had to be denied bail. Those are the 2 documents that were used.
Wow. Vice article, anti-hate article, and this kind of like non-specific belief that Diagolon is a violent militia.
Correct. And that was used early, and that was part of the ITOs. That's what at least whoever wrote it believed. And that's what the judges who denied bail believed. They believed that these were dangerous men. There were thousands of people willing to take over the government and storm the government, and these were just some of them. That's what they believed.
I want to take a moment to thank you, Jason, for following this story and documenting all of this and learning about it.
Oh, wow.
I really appreciate this, because if it weren't for people like you actually documenting what's going on, then these corrupt,
you wouldn't know this,
mother effers would be getting away with this. So I really appreciate you doing the right thing, and
Craig,
and documenting.
I appreciate that too. It wasn't easy.
There was times where, certain members of the Coots 4 relatives reached out to me and told me about like egregious things happening, and I felt bad because it's like, I don't know the laws. There's a publication ban. I want to talk about this. I don't know how to talk about this. I don't know anything about the law. I'm also over in Ontario, so that doesn't help either. And I'm also, friends are getting thrown in jail and stuff. So I'm like, I don't even, so I felt some guilt at the time of like, man, these guys are rotting in prison, and I didn't follow up with this person or that person. So I appreciate that there's someone like you out there who was on top of all of this.
That means a lot coming from you, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but I was there because I was covering the POEC, Public Order Emergency Commission, in 2022. And that was the first time I got introduced to Diagolon or Jeremy.
Oh, is that right?
Somebody reached out to me and he says, I have this friend and he's kind of running from the police. There's a warrant for him, nationwide warrant. What should he do? I'm like, turn himself in. There's really no other option. Like, the sooner you start addressing it, the sooner it's going to be dealt with. And I had no idea who he was, what the charges were. It was just somebody reached out and said, what do you think he should do? I said, turn himself in. Then I saw him in the trial, the POEC, when he was in Saskatoon. They had him in jail. They did that perp cam thing on him. And that's when I really started to learn a little bit more about Diagolon. And then I watched the POEC. I heard about Coots. There was a bunch of in-camera stuff that we didn't get to see. It was done in private.
In-camera stuff?
So in-camera means private. So when it comes to court or hearings, when they say in-camera, that actually means no camera because they're doing it behind closed doors. Yeah.
Great.
So that raised a big flag. And then Rouleau's report was, I believe Diagolon was dangerous, and I believe everything I heard in the in-camera stuff. I'm like, oh, dude, we got to find out what's going on.
Sorry, who is saying this? I believe everything.
Rouleau, the commissioner from the Public Order Emergency Commission.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
His report that came out. Yeah, his report is like Diagolon's real, the danger was real, everything was justified.
This was the conclusion of the POEC.
His conclusion, correct.
Which was like the final verdict of like the weeks and weeks long thing. Part of that conclusion of justifying the Emergencies Act was, oh yeah, no, Diagolon is legit terrifying. They're like it's legitimately scary.
Correct. His report said he doesn't believe Jeremy a single word he said. He believes the things we were told in camera, and everything he was told in camera is what I'm repeating to you now that came out in the trial,
which is the Vice article and the anti-hate article.
Correct. So finishing up and putting a bow on this Diagolon Coots situation. So the Crown decided after the hate gate, because it got argued during Chris Carbert's bail hearing December 2023. So in that bail hearing, that was brought up, this hate gate thing. And at that point on, this whole narrative about Diagolon just vanished out of the Coots trial.
Evaporated overnight, eh? Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, to the point where the Crown did say, without the jury there, we will not be bringing the term Diagolon up. Because if they do, then they have to explain what it is. And then if they do, the defense gets to now also tell the jury what it is. So the Crown made a decision to just keep Diagolon off the table. The closest they got was the patch. And they just said, like, and it has a patch. And they kind of just moved on. They didn't even call it a Diagolon patch or anything, which is good. But what we also saw during the trial is all 4 phones, the list of interested parties that the police were looking for, all of them included Jeremy McKenzie. So all
4 phones. These are the
all 4 phones of the men.
Okay.
Yeah, all 4 of them. The RCMP had a list of what we're looking for. That's part of their searching of it.
Sure.
And part of that list are interested parties. So obviously, the other 3 men were listed on each of their phones. So Tony had Chris, and Jerry on his list. Sure. But all 4 of them had Jeremy McKenzie on it. They also all had Pastor Arthur Pawlowski too, for some reason. But they all had Jeremy McKenzie on them. All 4 reports that came out of the RCMP, zero, nothing came out. No text with Jeremy, no messages, no nothing. They found 0 on all 4 phones related to Jeremy McKenzie. And that includes Lysak's phone.
Same with same with Arthur Pawlowski, I'm guessing. Like, do they also?
Yeah, 0 messages from Arthur Pawlowski too.
Just picturing an RCMP. Yeah. Okay, let's add. Okay, what's his number? Okay, Jeremy McKenzie. Oh, wait, hey, look, we just found Jeremy McKenzie on this phone. Wow, they all got it on here. Good job, guys. Let's have a beer. Disgusting.
Yeah, no, it was embarrassing. Like when I was watching it, I'm like, what? Greg, I got to tell you, I walked in there with at least. I walked in there hoping that the RCMP is there to protect us on some level, maybe from foreign or other things. And I was hoping that there is some degree of competency amongst the RCMP. I no longer feel that way after this trial. Wow. I'm actually worried as a Canadian on whether or not we are sufficiently protected with the RCMP, because the incompetency, the lying, eating pizza, destroying property, the perjury, according to them, not recording these interactions with the undercover operatives, like all of this stuff makes me go, I absolutely want more protection.
And it sucks. It paints a picture that they are so integral and just working together with the media, with anti-hate, with, like, you know, it's almost like they're all like on the same group call or same group chat. I don't know, just, you know, put them in the phone, like just add it to the phone, say it, make it part of the evidence, just like make it fit the narrative. Yeah.
By the way, that happened. What you just said there did happen.
Confirmed. Or I guess
they found a picture on Tony's phone. They found it in the cache. So if you're technical at all, you understand that the cache is temporary storage. Right. When you're browsing a web page, it will put it into the cache and then
it's stowed away cache storage. Yeah. It's hard to find storage on your phone. That's kind of like that the computer uses, and yeah, it's kind of in the background, but it's there.
Exactly. So if you want to keep a picture, you download it and it goes into your gallery or somewhere else on your device. They found a picture in his cache, which was a guitar case with guns in it. It's important to note there was no guitar case in the evidence, and the guns in this particular picture are not the same ones that were in evidence. So it's just a random picture of a guitar case with guns in it. They found that on Tony's phone in his cache.
Okay.
They found this well after the arrest because they didn't have Tony's phone until the arrest. So they found this well after the arrest. However, undocumented, not in notes, but only came out after the men were arrested, the undercover operative said that Chris said, remember, their notes didn't have Chris involved.
Undercover operative said that Chris said,
Yep.
in a recording, or like what's
there's no recording. It's just what they're saying now. That Chris said that, hey, should we bring them in like last time in a guitar case? So according to the undercover operatives during Coots, so pre-arrest, Chris made this statement on February 10th. According to the undercover operatives, and the timing is really important here. According to the undercover operatives, when Jerry left Milk River with a cache of guns, this is their testimony, heading down to Coots to transfer the guns to Chris and Tony, while he was driving down the back roads, Chris had this brilliant idea and bounced it off of Tony about putting guns into guitar cases. No, it doesn't fit logic. No, it doesn't fit reason. Like, is Jerry going to pull over and stuff a bunch of stuff into guitar cases that he doesn't have? Like, makes no sense that this comment was made. It only makes sense when you realize after arrest in Tony's cache, they found a picture of guitar case with guns in it. And also, if you realize that the notes did not have Chris talking about any of this stuff before, but all of a sudden, there's now this narrative where Chris is talking about a guitar case, smuggling guns like we did before with Tony in front of the undercovers. Well, that connects them completely to all of this, that one picture, right, that we found on Tony's phone that they didn't know until after his arrest. So when you're talking about editing, that's exactly what happened. So after they found that picture during the forensics portion of their investigation, like, oh, look what we found. If only one of them mentioned that. Ooh, look at that. If only it was Chris, because we don't have anything on him. If only it actually corroborates the undercover operatives. So they are saying here on the 10th, they make this statement, and then they find a picture later. That corroborates their statement, doesn't it?
So how long later did they make this statement of saying, oh, no, yeah, Chris said that a guitar case? He mentioned... After
Chris's second bail hearing. So his first bail hearing, they got disclosure. No notes about Chris from the undercover operatives. Mm-hmm. He loses because they got the anti-hate network and they got the Vice Media stuff. He loses. Right. He does another bail hearing, gets a different lawyer, gets a different disclosure, gets what's in there now. New notes that say Chris was part of these conversations.
Why wouldn't the notes be presented earlier on when the initial bail hearing was denied?
You're not a dumb guy.
Right.
You're not a dumb guy. So Chris has both packages, one pre, one post. The post one now has him involved. The pre had him not involved.
Sorry.
The pre one.
Sorry, one pre package? What's a package?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Disclosure.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you get your defense lawyer, he goes and requests disclosure. He receives it from Crown. So his first bail lawyer did that. That package did not have Chris as part of those conversations. He loses his bail hearing. He gets a new lawyer. The new lawyer makes a new request, gets a new disclosure package from the Crown. Suddenly, there's notes from undercover operatives that added Chris to the conversations.
Wow.
That much we know. Mm-hmm. But if you believe Chris, so like if you talk to him and believe him, and if you meet people from his family like Betty Carbert, who's hanging out with us right now, you know that these are honest people and good people. And when he says, I didn't say this, I believe him. So when I'm using that kind of bias, and it's a bias, I'll admit it, I'm looking at this in a different way. Like, why would Chris say while Jerry's driving from Milk River down to Coots, hey, suddenly let's change the packaging of the firearms? Like, that makes no sense. And like we did before, there was no other attempt, even according to the police, to bring in firearms like they did before. There was no guitar case. There was no firearms from that picture there. Like, none of this adds up unless you look at it retroactively. Mm-hmm. They found a picture, went back, modified some of their notes, spiced it up. It adds a lot of credibility to the undercover operatives if on February 10th, they say Chris is talking about a guitar case with guns, and then after arrest, March, April, May, later in the year, they find a picture that looks like that.
Right.
In front of a jury. Doesn't that look like corroboration? The undercovers must be telling the truth. That's what I think happened here, because there was no notes about this guitar case in the first version of disclosure.
And assuming this is a total lie, what is the crime for inventing evidence?
A whole bunch. There's tampering, there's perjury, there's obstruction of justice. There's a whole bunch.
Are you guys listening, RCMP? Are you listening to this?
They're half my viewers. Of course they are.
Yeah. Wow.
There's a lot. So to answer your, actually, I'm working on 2 questions from you now. What were the illegal things? And then what was the Diagon thing? So wrapping up the Diagon one, they found nothing but Jeremy. They didn't bring it into the trial. They didn't even call it a Diagon patch to the jury. Wow. That was never put to the jury. It wasn't real. And I think that also helped demolish that narrative forever. After that part happened in the trial, where they didn't bring forward Diagon, the patch, the narrative, Jeremy didn't find anything. From that point on, that entire narrative that there was some sort of collaboration or working together, it's false. That never happened. So CBC owes a bunch of apologies. Ezra owes a bunch of apologies, because for 2 years, and I'm being sued by him over this, for 2 years, Ezra was saying this about Jeremy, and it's been false the entire time.
I know that Ezra called him a Fed at one point. What else was he saying? That he was getting credibility to the spooky terrorism narrative. Is that right? Or
yeah, you can go back to a lot of his stuff, and don't worry, we've got copies of this. Many times, Ezra said, "I have 100 pages that people can't see that shows it as proof." Those 100 pages he's talking about are the ITOs. Okay, that's what he's talking about. And I originally said that Ezra got those improperly because he hired lawyers and the lawyers gave it to him. That was a mistake. That's not true. I was fed that information, maybe by some of the same people that have been calling you to talk about this stuff, but that was not true. Ezra sued me over that statement. And then he provided the receipt from the court where you, for a period of time, you could order the ITOs. The court would have given you a copy. He produced that receipt. I'm like, okay, sorry, I messed that up. That's a mistake.
And now he's suing
I retracted it. Suing me for something else now, but that one he withdrew the lawsuit for. The second lawsuit was for talking about there's a UK rebel employee who got fired or left. He was secretly recorded him.
I've seen the video.
And that video.
And you shared that video?
No, I talked about it. I didn't even share it or play it.
Wow.
That's what the second lawsuit's for, $150,000.
Amazing.
I'm working on it. I
mean, I guess hi to the Rebel News employee who's also obligated to watch this as well.
Canada Anti-Hate Network, Rebel News, CSIS,
How many real
RCMP.
viewers do we have here? Is this just an opportunity to get
my wife
sued
and 5
or thrown in
people.
prison when I come on your show, Jason? What the hell is this? Is this a trap?
I don't know. According to a lot of people, I'm a Fed, I'm an operative, you've heard it all before. All right, so now we're wrapping up 3 narratives here.
Okay.
There was what was illegal by everybody involved, Jeremy and Diagon, and now kind of this thing about the narrative that the media was using on Jeremy. That media narrative should now be done and dusted and completely dead. There was no proof. There never was proof that Diagon had anything to do with what was going on in Coots or Ottawa or otherwise. So that should be done and dusted. For the Jeremy Bow, I witnessed it. There was no evidence brought forward in front of that jury that said Jeremy, Diagon, connection, dangerous, extremist, nothing. That wasn't there. So they're off the table. And then to put a bow on the police side of things, the Crown side.
Vindicated. Yeah.
Vindicated. That should be done. And also that picture, they should stop using it. Only 6 out of the 15 were these men.
What was the patch like a genuine patch from one of the guys?
Yeah. I know the person that gave it to Lysick.
Okay.
There was a whole bunch of patches being handed out in pairs, and they were anybody that was interested in friendly and wanted it. Sure. It was it's probably somebody you know, and one day I'm sure he'll come out and tell you. But no, there was a friendly there, and he was just handing out patches as pairs. Chris Carbert received one too. He just never put it on his vest. It was sitting on his table when he got searched in his bedroom. There was a patch on the table.
Sure.
Again, it didn't make it in front of the jury because that narrative was killed by Canadian anti-hate, not Canadian Hategate. It was killed by the Hategate.
Shout outs to Kareem Assad. for her work on that, and
Alyssa as well. Alyssa is somebody, she's forgotten a lot about it, but she is a hard worker. She's a very honest person, and I got to thank her because the same group that caused a lot of headaches, and you know who we're talking about, they came up with a recent one that Donald Best is Grant Bristow. I'm sure maybe you've seen some of that by now.
I've heard a little bit about it. Like they're saying he's the exact same guy. No.
Yeah, they're saying he is him.
Like
he is same guy. Grant. Yeah, they put his pictures together, and they're morphing the pictures in such a way. And
all right.
Anyways, Alyssa, she came out. Nobody even knew about this. She just came out and posted online. I know Grant. I'm part of that whole story. I was there when they started that whole thing. Mm-hmm. Donald is not Grant. She came and put that out, and she received a ton of heat over it. And she reached out to me, and we chatted for a bit. She's an amazing person. I want to give her a lot of props, and she's usually forgotten about when Hategate is talked about.
She's been through a lot. Yeah, she's definitely been through a lot. Crazy.
It's complicated. So,
I mean, just to jump in real quick, because we're kind of alluding to these troublemakers or these misinformation agents or like these subversive people who are showing up and saying, "Oh no, you're a Fed, don't believe this. Oh no, that's actually Grant Bristow." And it's like, you know, where do these people come from? Where do these people come from? You were on with Arthur earlier. And he was kind of alluding to this at one point of, you know, these people. I think he said
no. He's been approached by him.
Yeah, and I think he said something which is like a good takeaway, which is you know, you need to pay attention to people who are doing stuff and not just the people who are talking. There's a lot of people who like to talk and say this and gossip and say, you know, it's. I almost want to like just to give people a strong visual. Maybe we've heard of Rachel Gilmore. You know, Rachel Gilmore is someone who yaps and she says, "Well, this person's awful and they're totally awful." And you know, she's causing people to you know, ruin their reputation or push them aside as a bad person. Just imagine that some of these other people, some of these other misinformation agents are like a version of Rachel Gilmore. Like they're just doing it in their own way. Just like, "Oh no, this is what I heard, blah, 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 blah." And it's like, just like Rachel Gilmore, when you watch one of her false TikToks and you look into it, it's like, this is a total misrepresentation of the facts. This person is muddying the waters. And then pay attention and look at these, when there's these other wild accusations, treat them like Rachel Gilmore. Like, you know, is this stuff actually founded? Maybe this stuff, maybe I want to believe, because that's another thing. Like, Rachel Gilmore is successful. Anti-hate is successful. These far leftists are successful because it actually feels good to jump on the bandwagon and hate people. Like that's why it works. It's like, oh, it's easy. Like, yeah, let's just hate on this person. Let's hate on this right-wing person. They're a Nazi, whatever. Like, there's a psychological appetite that people have, unfortunately, to like join the mob and just start hating somebody. And it also happens in our smaller communities. It happens in the same way. It's like, it's easier for people to, instead of accepting how terrible the situation is and how corrupt these different institutions are, RCMP, Pierre Poilievre, all these kind of hopes we have. Let me just actually shit on Jeremy McKenzie and like actually make him the worst possible villain in the situation. Let me actually just shit on Jason Lavigne. Maybe, it gets easy. It feels good to, like, you know, shit on the people who are actually doing stuff. And yeah, like, I think that's part of it. They tap into this sort of like psychological thing of just wanting to, you know what? All my angst, all my frustration with the country of Canada, instead of like directing it to like the major institutions, I'm going to direct it at this person over here who's actually doing something. You know, it's awful. Dude, it's I'm sure you've mulled this over in your head, and I'll finish my rant here. But unfortunately, it's easier to trick people than to convince them that they've been tricked. You know, like, it's easier to like tell a lie and like shove misinformation around to like sway people in one direction. And it's harder to be like, no, like that, you know, Jeremy isn't a Fed. This person isn't a Fed. Like, that was a lie. Like, you know, it's so much more difficult to like unpack all of that, or to like, you know, reverse these smears. But, and then shout outs to the devil, the great deceiver. It works the same way. Evil works the same way. Lying, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's the end of my rant. But,
and you're absolutely right. And that's what Arthur was touching on today. So we're talking about scoundrels in the mist. Because what happened with him, and I'm working really hard not to give them any oxygen, because it's been nasty what's been going on. Sure. But I walked out of the courtroom. Arthur's walking out. I didn't even know he was there. We're all pretty focused on what we're doing. I walk out. I see Arthur. Hey, Arthur, how you doing? Hug, friend, nice. Mm-hmm. At this moment of the trial, I do not stick around in the hallway because of the drama that's been going on. So I just leave, make my way down, going for lunch.
Sure.
Arthur comes out. Somebody grabs me downstairs. Hey, Jason, big fan, talking to me for a bit. I do that often down in the galley area or just outside the door. Arthur comes. This is like no more than 5 minutes ago. I saw him upstairs. Now he's downstairs. And he comes up to me and just beelines right to me. He's like, Jason, we need to work on this drama. It's very destructive. I'm like, oh, hi. Because I didn't talk to him about any drama, but within the last moment I saw him to now, someone did. And I know exactly who did because he told me. And this person came up to him and basically told him, you got to stay away from Jason. He's a Fed. He's a controlled op. He lies. He's been hurting the families. The families all are against him. I know this is true, but this is what they're telling him. So he comes down and he says, look, we need to fix this. I'm like, I would love to. He goes, I'm a pastor. I mediate. I do this all the time. I'm very good at it. I'm like, I believe you. Yeah, absolutely. I get all that. Okay. He goes, can I mediate this? I'm like, go for it. But let me tell you one thing. You're the 12th person to do that. Offer to mediate. There's some really big names, some of them you and I know, who offered to do this already. If you're successful, I would be very impressed because they are hiding something that they don't want to go public, and they believe I'm going to go put it public, and this is why they're trying to silence me, but I wish you nothing but the best. Please do your thing. God bless you. He left. He went for lunch, went with that group. And his intention, and he talked about it on the show today, his intention was to mediate, figure out if this could be fixed.
Yeah, get to the bottom of things, find out what the drama is about, what's actually going on.
I knew how this was going to turn out because it turned out 12 other times exactly the same way, which was the mediator coming back saying, sorry, this one's untouchable. So he came back after lunch. I saw him in the courtroom. He's sitting right behind me. Just before the judge comes in, I turned to him like, hey, so how was your lunch? Did it go well? And he looks me straight into the eyes. He goes, snakes don't look in your eyes. I'm like, oh, yeah. I've noticed that too. Staring right in his eyes. I'm like, yeah, no, that sucks. It's horrible. And then today, he kind of expanded a little bit more. Yep. Snakes don't look you in the eyes.
Wow.
Yep. I'm like, okay, you told me everything.
The righteous authority of Pastor Arthur Pawlowski. Just, oh, man.
Yeah. And he sat behind me and we still talk. And then what he shared with us today was he was told to stay away from me or else they're going to cut him off and all that kind of stuff. He shared that today. And
I mean, I'm not looking forward to this, Jason, because I have a feeling I'm going to go on my Facebook comment section, Twitter, and I'm going to be the new target of, I gave some sympathy to, he's part of the Fed network, confirmed, guilty. Oh, no.
Yeah, you're going to see a little bit of pushback. Anybody that comes on my show, when I announce, people get, that happens. I've had many guests reach out and say, what's going on here? There's even a really good guy. At some point, he's going to come on again, but he's quite literally traumatized by what they did to him after. He pulled me aside. He said it was so toxic that it really bothered him, what they did to him after he came on my show. It's nasty, but it's starting to go away. The trial's over. They're still trying to hold on to this fake Grant Bristol thing. So just search Donald Best, Grant Bristol. You'll see exactly who all these players are. Anybody watching, you can do the exact same thing. And it's very public. And it's also, they connect me with Jeremy McKenzie too. So it's Jeremy, me, and Donald. They group us together. We are definitely feds. We're doing all of this.
We don't have to go. We don't have to go into their delusional, insane theories. I'm good. I've seen enough of that, I think.
Yep.
I saw one recently that Arthur was is part of it too, or something. Isn't there some
Arthur in what way?
They
probably now after his video today. Yeah. That's their MO. They'll go and attack anybody. Look, one day there's
the devil knows no new tricks. They say the devil knows no new tricks. So they lie, they deceive. That's all they do.
Yep.
That's all they do.
Snakes don't look in your eyes. That should be on a T-shirt with two eyes staring right at you. But yeah,
let's touch on Arthur. Did we cover everything with Coots? Pretty much.
I think I've answered. I think I've wrapped up all your questions at this point. There's a lot more, but what are you curious about? I can help with.
If it comes up, we'll go back to it. But I'm thinking of Arthur right now, and I remember hearing. Do you know much about his trial and why he went to jail and what he was charged with? Like, my understanding is very basic, and I don't know if it's accurate. He got charged with some sort of charge having to do with like destroying infrastructure for delivering a sermon.
Inciting mischief.
Oh, inciting mischief. This was for delivering a sermon at Coots.
Correct. And he was found guilty and sentenced to 50 days. He served more than that already, so he didn't have to go back in.
Was there not some other charge, though, of some larger charge of destroying infrastructure or something like this? I thought he got pinned with some other crazy charge having to do with...
No, just had him on this morning. He mentioned terrorism, but terrorism wasn't one of his charges, but inciting mischief was, and that's what he was found guilty on.
So this is for delivering a sermon. He didn't actually have any...
Yeah. Yeah, and if you listen to his sermon, there's no violent talk. He's just calling the government pigs, and you got to stand up to these.
Is the loophole like it's like inciting to commit mischief, i.e., encouraging people to go to the? That's the argument, right?
Yeah. So his trial was basically, it still continued after he was there, and there was talk about moving to Edmonton. So there was talk about moving the convoy or the protests from Coots to Edmonton. And then it was after his sermon when absolutely nobody wanted to move. Everybody stayed in Coots. So they're using all of that as counseling, incitement, mischief. Yeah. And he got 50 days and he served more than that. So he didn't have to go back in. Like he was in remand for a while.
What are your thoughts on,
so saying another charge. This is my wife.
Yeah.
So offenses in willful damage to it's in the private chat. Hava Kringle said he couldn't rule on that charge Tuesday because the defense had given notice of a constitutional challenge. So so it looks like he was charged with the Defense Act, Infrastructure Defense. You know what they were trying to do there? Get precedents in Alberta because that was a new act. But as you can see here, the judge tossed it. And Padge, you're really using CTV News to get this information to us? Oh boy!
So I wasn't completely off the mark then. There was some truth in.
Yeah, he wasn't convicted of it though.
Yeah,
as we're seeing here. Yeah, it wasn't convicted of it here.
Yeah,
but I think that's what he's calling terrorism. So when he says terrorism and incitement to mischief, he might be calling this terrorism. Right. He wasn't charged with terrorism though.
Oh man. So I want to
ask. Thanks, Padge, by the way.
What's that?
I said, thanks, Padge, for getting that information for us.
Yeah, thank you. Didn't make me look like a dummy who doesn't know what he's talking about. So after all of this, I mean, the dust is still settling. I mean, I do want to kind of give sympathy to the guys, and I know some of them like we're guilty of this, that, or the other, but
for sure.
And I just to take us back to the convoy moment, there was so much fear and uncertainty for people who are unvaccinated or standing up for the unvaccinated at these protests. And, as we're seeing now, this sort of like fear or distrust with the actual police officers and federal police that are supposed to protect us, it's kind of clear that fear doesn't come out of nowhere. This sort of distrust doesn't just they're delusional. Like throughout this entire conversation, it's become pretty clear that, these people have a political agenda. Who knows what they might do? As it's been admitted, if I'm not mistaken, that they destroyed private property to try and invoke some sort of response. So I just of course I don't advocate for violence or anything like that, but I do want to give sympathy to these men who are afraid of what might happen next, afraid what the RCMP might do next. And I'm not trying to justify what they did or co-sign any of the things that are illegal that they did. However, at the same time, I don't know. It's just, I just want to emphasize because some people, I think I saw Donald Best kind of say they mess it up for everybody. And it's I don't really agree with that. Although
he's coming on Friday to correct that. He's coming back on Friday to correct that.
Yeah. I understand where he's coming from, but again, it's kind of like the blame game. It's it was a pretty kind of messed up thing, the whole protest, the madness during the convoy across the country, and let's keep our eye on the ball here, okay? I don't know if I mentioned it this succinctly, but who did we find out has been guilty Like RCMP sounds like he's been guilty of a number of things.
And
actually.
at least one Crown member too. At least one looks very guilty too.
Yeah. So it's like, what's the verdict? What's it where in terms of who's actually guilty? Like, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to serve justice here. But it looks like the least guilty people were the people who were in jail for
Correct.
for over 2 years on remand. So
you're not wrong. And when I'm talking like this, and I get in trouble all the time because people say that this is my opinion, that I when I say they were found guilty, people take it like I'm saying that they're guilty, like I think they're guilty. I want to be very clear. None of these men should have been remanded.
No.
Not even for a day. None of these men should have been remanded. And this trial should have happened a lot differently than it did. The explosive charge should never have been on there. That was found outside of Coots, not related to Coots. That should have been a different trial for Tony. But they added it to this trial so that the jury got to see pipe bombs and all that kind of stuff, like things like that. They should have been severed. They should have had their own trials. Because individually, that would have been very, very different. They should have had bail. If they were going to be tried on this, it should have been bail right off the bat. Like, I don't think, after I've watched everything, that there's any crime here that required society to demand incarceration in order to be safe or to send a message. I don't think we reached that level.
Yeah, exactly.
In this trial.
That's kind of my, it's been some time now, but now that you've illuminated some of the things that I thought were true about the whole situation, it's like, okay, maybe some guy was guilty of this or that or the other, then let him serve the time or face the consequences of that. And then let's move on with our lives. Instead, these men were used as a political football for years by these corrupt institutions, dragged through the mud, all that, dehumanize people, laughing at them. Oh, I'm glad they're getting like more years in prison. And it's just like our justice system has failed. Like, this institution is unfortunately a, kangaroo court, however you want to classify it. But it's, people need to pay attention to that. Remember that. And once again, thank you, Jason, for like documenting all of this and explaining it to me, a legal normie. I really,
you're a very smart guy though.
I'm trying to keep up, but it's difficult, but I really appreciate you.
Well, let me give you some hope.
Okay.
So I talked to Danielle Smith at a town hall. My wife and I went to Drayton Valley where she was at a town hall, Danielle, and I asked her about an inquiry on this. She did commit to doing an inquiry when all appeals have been exhausted. So when the entire process is finished and she can't be accused of interference, then she will call for an inquiry into this. So that's good news. I also believe within 10 to 20 years in the future, Canada is going to be apologizing to a whole bunch of people. A whole bunch of people. King, Barber, Leach, Carbert, Olenek, Lysick, Morin, and more. There's going to be more. Because Canada, as a society, not necessarily the government, is going to realize they were very right to do whatever they could, even with violence, that would have been justified, to stop the murdering of a bunch of Canadians from the vax. So in the future, I do believe that society will come around, realize what really happened, maybe jail a few people, and then at that point, erect a few statues in Coots, Ottawa, Windsor, and do a bunch of apologies.
Jeremy McKenzie will then be declared the King of Canada when that happens 10 years from now.
He's going to lead the parade.
I love that. I love that. I love the sound of that. And, it's similar sort of to the NCI, how they're kind of the National Citizens Inquiry. They're collecting the receipts, right? Like they're collecting all of this. You're documenting the Coots stuff. Other people are collecting the receipts there. And I love the sound of that. And maybe just to segue into what I'm doing with SaveFreeSpeech.ca.
Please do.
Yeah.
So it's so important because we won't be able to do this for long if we don't get this worked out.
Yeah. We are telling the story. We want to document all of this, tell the story, you could call it propaganda if you want. I don't mind that. We're turning it into videos and content to explain this injustice, to explain the corruption, and to show Canadians across the country that it is happening and it is horrific and it is morally wrong, most importantly. Like, it is wrong. I want to activate more Canadians and show them just how deep the corruption is and how unjust it is what's happened to the Coots guys, all the other political prisoners during the trucker convoy. And, well, we're making a documentary that's going to involve these political prisoners and talk about how they've been unjustly smeared by antihate.ca and how these articles like from Vice get somehow used in a court order to justify keeping men in jail. Like there's so much corruption that's going on. And you can check out SaveFreeSpeech.ca. The bill itself is obviously important, Bill C-63, but more importantly, SaveFreeSpeech.ca is about being a free speech watchdog. Bill C-63 would be totally awful and terrible. It would give the government so many more tools to work with to persecute people who have the wrong political opinions. So obviously we want to be vocal about Bill C-63. But on top of that, it's a lot more. It's pushing back against these far left ideologues in this country who are systematically trying to, deperson and devalue people like us. But if you want to go up to the donate button, this is a good page too, but we're creating a documentary. We're creating a documentary to tell the story about this, the Canadians who have been wronged, the Canadians who have been silenced, and how it happened. Because we do have the receipts of how all of this has gone down. We do know the key players behind the scenes, and we need to expose it. We need to tell the story. And I'm very happy to say we have an award-winning filmmaker working with us. Okay, I'm not going to say who it is, but because I don't want his life to be ruined by all these freaks.
Not yet.
Yeah. No, but we're really happy to have him on board. We break down it's precisely what the money is going to pay for, this documentarian, his team, other editors, writers, contributors, researchers. And I would love to name names, but let's be fair. These people have an agenda to shut us down. So we're keeping it under wraps as much as possible. But if you want to help us tell this story, share it with the rest of the country and even beyond, because this documentary will be on Amazon Prime Video. This is going to be legit. It's going to be broadcast ready. It's going to be legit. We're going to submit it to film festivals and everything to ring the alarm bells about these smear merchants in Canada and a major kind of piece to the puzzle in terms of dismantling the corruption in Ottawa.
Do you want to play this little video here?
I mean,
or we can share the link to it.
Yeah, just share the link. Just share the link. That's a good video. It warns about Bill C-63. It's good. You can go check it out yourself on your own time.
That's exciting. I got to be honest with you. The video is going to help to get that movie out. I'm really glad that there's a good documentarian doing it with you. And any way I can help, even if it's just getting you back on and talking about some more, I'm more than happy to help.
Yeah. So we've done a lot of the research and the writing already in terms of what the story is really about, but we still need to collect some interviews. So heads up for that. There's obviously hey, let's make a list of, people who have been wronged for their political opinion in this country. It's we got 10 pages, it's unfortunately we are going to have to narrow it down and figure out the best way to tell the story. But, we need that. We need these authentic stories getting out there, to ring the alarm bells. We need to start collecting the receipts, which we're doing, and then telling the story to more people, as many people as possible, in a very plain, matter-of-fact way that's compelling, that draws into the emotion, and really activates people to show them the wrongs happening in this country. So again, go to SaveFreeSpeech.ca and then look for that donate link to support the documentary.
Great work. Now you initiated this. Are you the guy behind this, or are you part of a team, or?
We're part of a team, a very big team, RCMP, a very big team, anti-hate. You don't even want to know how many people are involved in this. I'm just one single player. Okay. You don't even want to know, Jason, how many people are involved in this. They're everywhere. Some of them might even work for the government. Some of them might even work for the RCMP and anti-hate. Yes, there are infiltrators among you feeding me information. You better check. You better check. Who's
And I think my wife and I just got our own anti-hate coverage too now.
Let's go. Congratulations. Hey, high five. Boom. Yeah. Means you're on the right side of history.
I guess because they're calling my platform a platform for racists, and Paul is part of this, but she's an Arab from Nigeria who isn't white. I guess I must be a horrible racist then, because I'm not even being racist within my own family. Maybe
Yeah.
they should do their own homework and do a little bit of research. But in either
Yeah.
case,
It's pretty consistent. What anti-hate does is they target people who are being effective and communicating with Canadians the corruption that's going on that opposes their far left ideology or their agenda. That's who they target. They target people who are effective. So it really should be a badge of honor to have an anti-hate.
The way I envision it in my head, because I have a very graphical brain, is I have a bomber and I got my first little thing on the side. You know, when you actually get your first kill and you have that little thing on the side of your bomber.
Sorry, a bomber? Like a
bomber, like an airplane bomber. Yeah, you know how they used to put the stamps on when they finished their mission?
Okay, yeah.
Well, I got one now. I got the anti-hate network stamp, and I must be over the target. I must have hit a target. That's the way I kind of look at this one. It is a badge of honor, but it certainly drums up a lot of unnecessary pain.
Yeah, and it's tough. However, like the cultural undercurrent, or like the sort of byproduct of what I want to do with Save Free Speech, or I think it's naturally going to happen, is to moralize, not to demoralize, but to moralize Canadians and encourage them to say, hey, don't be afraid of these devils, of these demons, of these people calling you names. Okay. Because we know we're in the right. And there's a cultural undertone here, because even Canadians who aren't political are afraid. Even Canadians who aren't, they're afraid of just saying, oh yeah, I don't think trans women are women. They're afraid to say the most basic truths. So it's like, yes, I want to, expose the far left ideologues in this country and tell the story of political prisoners. However, it's like, at the same time, do Canadians even use their free speech? Are they even using it? You know, we need to really work on that and encourage that in spades, because if we don't use it, we will lose it. It's kind of a cliche, but it's like, if we have an attitude of being a timid population who's constantly accepting more corruption, accepting more nonsense. Oh yeah, it's okay, I won't do anything about it. You know, why do we even deserve free speech if we're not going to speak up? We don't even deserve to keep it if we have that energy. We need to use it. We need to use it and stop being afraid of this name calling. And it starts with not being intimidated by lies. You know, listen to your heart. You know you're in the right. You know you're in the right. And yeah, it is. But to be fair, it is scary. It is scary. But at the same time, if we don't do something now, it will become almost near impossible to do anything about it. Like, for example, I don't want to go into the horror stories of Bill C-63, but it's like, you know, take the Coots thing that happened, take any political prisoner since the convoy, and then throw layers and like multiple layers of extra charges, multiple layers of extra human rights getting censored on the internet, so you can't even get the word out there of how you're being mistreated. It truly would be the end of free speech in Canada, and someone like you definitely understands that based on everything that you've seen with Coots.
Absolutely. And conspiracy hat, I'm going to put it on for just a second here.
Let's do it.
The behavior that I've been receiving online, the hate that I've been receiving online for the last year, kind of puts me into a position where I feel like they're trying to force me, whoever they are, to want the bill as somebody who's been targeted and attacked. And I'd be like, okay, now I kind of see why we should have an online hate act, because they're death threatening me. They're putting up all this crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And each time I start going down that line of thinking, like, should we have some sort of limits? Because look what's happening to me and my family. I still push back. I'm like, no, you know what? Even though that this sucks for us, it will suck a lot more if I start becoming pro 63 and then 157 and 192 and all the other ones after. Like, even though it's happening to me, I think it's happening to me so that I can feel it and maybe become a proponent of it. It's not working because I can kind of see through this. It's garbage. So I'm just going to ignore it and use some other legal matters or means that are currently existing. But I'm not going to start saying, yes, let's get Bill 63 in place because I'm being, death threatened online. I'll deal with that under the criminal code already. And that's kind of my message. We already have criminal code remedies for this stuff. So let's just use that. Let's not go and create new ones that allow anonymous people to make statements and then you have some conditions on you because a judge believes it. Like, that's crazy. Even if I'm going to go through, even if I am death threatened and somebody actually follows through with it, I still don't think we should have those kind of restrictions, unfortunately.
You nailed it with there's already laws in place.
Remedies. Yep.
Yeah, there's already remedies in place to remedy the situation. Yeah, I mean, there is a page on the website, SaveFreeSpeech.ca/C63 of why it's completely absurd, but it's honestly still incomplete. There's still so many absurd things that this bill could be used. And you're absolutely right. On doing my intensive research on this bill and seeing other people talk about it, seeing other groups talk about it, all of a sudden their eyes light up. And there's this appetite of like, well, we could use this bill for our own political agenda. Yeah, we could use this against the groups we don't like. We could use this against the people we don't like. And can you imagine how much of a horrible country that would be to live in, where you have different groups warring against each other, using a piece of legislation to weaponize against each other to try and silence people, trying to call them terrorists or whatever. Like, it sounds like a nightmare. It sounds like divide and conquer on steroids. But it's keeping people safe. And it's like, no, immediately people don't even think about that. Immediately these other groups go to, well, how could I use this? How could I get the power to silence people? Like it turns the average person into a tyrant. It's horrifying. And a lot of people say, hey, it's not going to pass. It's not going to pass. I've heard this, of course. The fact that it's even being presented is atrocious, and it needs to be a point to be made. The fact that this is even being considered is totally absurd and insane and a disgrace to our free country of Canada. Like on that grounds alone, the fact that you would even say this, absolutely not. We need to humiliate these people, call them out. It's totally atrocious. And honestly, I'm excited because it's, I've done content, comedy, whatever. This is something that I'm excited to be focusing on because, I think it's worthwhile, and it's,
God bless you.
Yeah. Thank you.
You should. And I'm glad somebody's picked up that torch to do that. It's been a concern of mine. It's going to shut us down. And the very next step after the Online Harms Act is the Harms Act. They're going to take the way online off, and it's going to be in the real world too. So if you're making somebody uncomfortable on a bus, guess what? That's going to be under the Harms Act.
I mean, it's already kind of in there, believe it or not. Like it's called Online Harms Act, and then only one part of it is about online, and then a whole majority of it, a huge chunk of it, is all just about speech. Period. So like it's already in there actually. Only one small section.
And that's going to lead to segregation in the physical world. So you're going to not go to a restaurant, or you're going to be on a certain side. Like that's what we're going to see happen.
We're going to make sure it doesn't pass, but you're right.
Great.
It would be that. So there's no will. It will be this. It would be if it passed, but it's not going to. It's a hypothetical. It's not going to happen.
I love your optimism on that. And for people that say, now for people, not you right now, but for other people who say, don't worry, it won't pass. They're not looking at Europe. There's bills very similar to this that already passed and already in effect. So if you don't think that a society can pass one of these, they already have other places.
Yeah. And we have a bill. We passed Bill C-18. Which was
11, 18, and 63. I'm devastated by those.
Exactly. Yep. And we can say that Bill C-18 is objectively poor legislation because you can't even get news now. Essentially the big tech platforms said, we're going to call your bluff, Canadian government. We don't like this legislation. So now we're just going to actually pull out sharing news in your country. Go F yourself. That's objectively poor legislation. Like they messed up.
Yep.
And of course, there's very similar stipulations in Bill C-63 where it might even just nuke the Canadian internet. Because what they're presenting is, hey, if you don't take down the content that the government official tells you to take down, Facebook or Instagram, we're going to fine you like millions of dollars. Like, so the financial risk for these big tech companies to even agree to this bill is insane. And they might think, big tech might just do the numbers and say, you're only like 40 million people. You're not even a big market. That's just like California to us. So we're just going to like pull out of the country entirely. Anyway, there's a lot of things obviously wrong with the bill, but in general,
thank you for doing it.
Yeah, it's what was the other thing? Oh yeah. I wanted to take a minute just to kind of push back or undermine the Conservative Party a little bit, because I'm being told that don't worry, Greg.
Go for it.
Don't worry, Greg. I'm being told, don't worry, Greg. The Conservative Party is going to save us. They're going to push back against this bill by presenting their own bill. We're going to do the Online Harms Act properly. That's literally what Michelle Rempel is saying. We're going to write the real bill that's actually going to protect kids. And just from a negotiation standpoint, this is not pushing back. This is validating the entire premise of Bill C-63, Michelle Rempel. So it's not pushing back. If you were pushing back, you would say, this is a disgrace to democracy, this bill. It's trying to violate our charter rights to an insane degree. And by the way, we need to repeal Bill C-18 and Bill C-11. That would be pushing back. That's the negotiate. If you were serious, if you were a serious conservative party, a serious opposition party, that's what you would be saying. You would be throwing Bill C-63 out and saying repeal C-18, repeal C-11. But you're not saying that. You're saying, well,
correct.
We're gonna protect the online space properly. And they haven't presented the actual bill yet. However, they're doing some of the exact same language, some of the exact same arguments are coming from this little Michelle Rempel blog post talking about this bill, which is, don't worry, we're not going to have any loose, unspecific language. By the way, in the same breath, we're going to stop online bullying. Really. And then on top of that, Michelle Rempel also says, because they use the angle of criminal harassment. There's the legal precedent for criminal harassment, and we're just going to use the legal system to apply that to the online space. It'll be great. And then she says, people are dying from criminal harassment. People are dying from criminal harassment online. And I'm like, wow, that's a crazy claim to make. Like, so in a way, online bullying is turning into deaths in real life. If you actually click on the story that she shares, it's talking about a stalker who stalks an ex-girlfriend. The stalker knows where the ex-girlfriend works. It has nothing to do with any like online posting or anything. So once again, it's exactly what the liberals do, which is taking a tragedy, taking a crime that's already horrible, and then using it. See, we need this government control. It's exactly what Arif Farani did when presenting Bill C-63, and now it's exactly what Michelle Rempel is doing. Is saying we're going to stop stalkers. Like we're going to stop jilted exes from domestic disturbances and violence and murder. It's like, it doesn't make, it's total nonsense. And the real sort of theory I have is the blue tyrants, the Conservative Party, they're like, well, we're going to get into power soon. And, we could use some protections, because especially when all this Pierre Poilievre hype boils over and it turns out they realize we're corrupt globalists, they're probably going to really hate us. And if we put something into the online harms thing where they can't harass us online, because let's face it, who gets the most harassed on the internet? Pound for pound, post for post. It's the people in power. The people in power naturally are going to get crapped on the most. They are going to get criticized the most on the internet. They're going to get harassed the most on the internet. And isn't it convenient that this government who's about to go into power probably they want to set up some sort of protection system where if hey, Pierre Poilievre's going to be here, let's go protest there. Could that not be criminal harassment? Could they not make the president of that is, hey, this person's following me around, oh my God, that's where I think it's going, where they want to insulate politicians in this country from criticism conveniently. Using the whole thing of protecting kids and protecting people from criminal harassment. You want to protect politicians from harassment. You want to protect yourself from harassment online. You don't like it when people get angry at your poor leadership. That's my theory on what their version of the Online Harms Act is about. But I don't know if we're going long here, but
well, that's fact check true. We're going a little bit long, but that's okay. Fact check true. I absolutely believe what you just said there is very accurate. When she says we are going to protect children better, right there, she doesn't know what the Harms Act is for. It's not to protect children. We already have laws for that. It's to remove some more of our abilities to speak. Yeah, so right off the bat, right out of the gate, she's wrong.
Yeah,
that's scary.
That's the false premise of Bill C-63 that they're saying that it's going to protect kids.
It's always for your safety.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Don't forget the children, right? Why do we know the 11 MPs who were working with China interference?
Good question.
Let's just start there. Look, at the end of the day, we're supposed to have official opposition who's supposed to be the biggest critic of the current government. We don't have that.
No, we don't.
We're supposed to have media that's supposed to be a big critic of the government. We don't have that. And now they're trying to eliminate the people's in-person and online voice to do that. They're eliminating every single critique that they can have. What is that called? Well, it's a dictatorship. It's tyranny. If you can't even listen to your critics, we're in a lot of trouble. Maxime Bernier would be the only one that's really stepping up against that.
Yeah. I mean, if we got to get the support where we can find it, and we got to organize. Like obviously protesting is important, but starting to build these organizations, starting to build these case studies, starting to collect the receipts and really turn it into something more and larger and greater that can reach out of our echo chamber and really lift us all up. It is a David versus Goliath story, but at the end of the day, it's not just going to be one slingshot throw. It's going to be a long, hard march to building our own organizations to oppose these massive institutions, all of which are failing us. Like you named the different, like they're all failing us. And at the end of the day, we need to start building. We need to start building something new that's going to carry us into the future. That's the only
Absolutely,
way.
brother. Well, thank you for taking the lead on that one. I'm really impressed and proud, and we'll be giving a contribution, and I'm sure our members will do that as well.
Thanks so much for having me. And
I just have a couple more questions for you, if you don't mind. What
Sure.
we're going to do is we'll jump into our members area, just wrap up a couple questions.
Sure.
That's how I pay my bills. So we'll do that. Thanks, bud. All right, Padge, let's do this. Public, thank you so much for hanging out with Greg. We talked about a lot. If you put this together with the Pelosi interview this morning and today, you learned a lot about what was happening in Lethbridge Courthouse. So check it out. Thank you very much, Greg, for hanging out with me. That was awesome. And Public, if you want to join us in the members area where we're heading to right now, you can go to thelevineshow.com, get yourself started, click on Become a Member, and you can also send an email to members@thelevineshow.com. Paula will send you the package. You can get yourself going. Remember, it's pay what you can afford, so there's no excuse. Let's get you in there. And you can also phone 587-673-9955, and she can help you, answer questions, maybe even tell you the weather of Breton. Whatever. Give her a call. She'll help you out. Public, you take care of yourself and your family. Make sure you shake the hand of a stranger or a neighbor. Why do I remind you about this? It's because I love you all very much, and God bless.
Warning. Member videos may contain confidential information about ongoing legal proceedings. Unauthorized publication, distribution, or broadcasting of the contents of these videos outside of the members area is strictly prohibited. Violations could result in charges under the Criminal Code of Canada, including but not limited to sections related to publication bans. This content is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended as legal advice. To become a member, visit thelevineshow.com.
This is intense. Am I under arrest?
All right. So, Greg, did you see that little warning message before we came in here?
Yeah, I'm kind of scared right now. What's going on here?
That's what gave me the ability to talk about everything in the Coots trial during the trial. So once we move to the members area and provide that message, we're no longer in a public space. So there's no such thing as a publication ban violation.
Should I stop my live stream on YouTube?
You can. Right now, nothing I'm saying is going to be an issue for us because this is all public knowledge now. But when we moved into our members area during the trial, that's when I was able to share everything.
Okay.
Everything.
So should I, to be safe, should I?
You don't have to. No, because those publication bans are lifted. So we're good now.
Okay.
I'm just letting you know that that's how I was able to, for 43 days.
All right.
During the trial, not get into trouble again. And this was all worked with lawyers and stuff like that. We learned our lesson and sit in front of that judge.
For sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So nothing went public. But yeah, you can keep this live on YouTube. That's fine with me. I don't have no problem with that.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have a couple members' questions. So at this stage, what will happen? And by the way, if you're on YouTube, you get to see what their member experience is like.
Ooh.
Patch, go ahead and jump on. And I'm not on YouTube anyways. They kicked me off twice, so I won't be able to do anything there. But hey, Patch, all we really do is we'll answer a few questions to our members and have a special goodbye for them.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to add, so regarding the Artur Pawlowski, the damage, so Isla J said, yep, they changed the charge to inciting mischief.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what
Thanks,
they're
Isla
doing
Jason.
for him. And then there's a comment here for Greg. Greg has a great comedy act as well. He's very talented.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I try.
You do comedy?
I've done some comedy shows. I know how to make a room of people laugh. Yeah, if I need to, especially if they're right wingers. It's yeah. I got some songs. I play guitar. Yeah, I have a song called I pretend to be Justin Trudeau, and I'm like, as you know, I'm single now, and well, this song is about the women that I really look for. I love trans women and their Adam's apples. There's one swimming. She's so much faster than the other girls. Yeah, and it goes on, that type of stuff.
Not wrong.
Do you do this online? Do you do like variety shows? If I brought you with Danger Cat, can we get something going? Or
so I've opened up for Danger Cats before. I've worked with them before.
Not surprised.
Those guys are great. But and they're it's not official yet, but we are going to be doing a fundraiser for the Free Speech documentary, and along with that, we are going to be doing a comedy show next month. The details aren't confirmed yet. But a huge part of the angle is obviously the comedy, the free expression. We're already having a problem with that. Danger Cats were getting targeted for doing comedy, for making an off-color joke or whatever about current events, which is literally what comedians are supposed to do. The humor.
That's awesome. Yeah, let me know about that. If it's in person, is it going to be in Ontario, or are you going to do it a few places? Or
right now we're just going to do one in Toronto. But if things go well, if the funding goes well, if the fundraiser goes well, we will probably do a tour to screen the documentary. And then I'm thinking it would be cool to do comedy shows along with that in the same cities, like the night before, like after the screening. Just kind of double our time while we're out there.
So you're giving Antifa a whole bunch of reasons to threaten the venues. Got it.
That happens. It proves our point. Right? Like, it would be great. It was like, okay, great. This is exactly what the documentary's about. Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah, someone should make a documentary called Venues with a Pair of Balls. The entire documentary is about venues that stand up to it. And then when you book, are they going to cancel, or are they going to watch your video? Because it happens all over. It happened to Danger Cats. We had tickets in Drumheller to go watch Danger Cat, and the day before, the venue canceled. And it was a bit of a mess, but I ended up going to the show. It was a good time, but it's crazy.
Yeah. And it's, a meme or a joke I've said before is like, is it me, or are we being held hostage by like the rainbow people? It's like, don't you dare say that, bigot. It's like, I'm so tired of our entire society being held hostage by these far left freaks. Let's face it. I mean, it's like, I'm done with this. I'm tired of this, and we need to stand up to it. And yes, we're going to get called names. We're going to get called racist, sexist, bigot, all the other things. But, majority of Canadians are tired of it too. They just don't have a vehicle. They don't have the validation or the strength or the courage to stand up to it. And by telling these stories of the Canadians who have been wronged and to expose just how nefarious and immoral these people are, that's going to help encourage people to be like, you know what? I am in the majority. I am tired of these far left ideologues, intimidating everybody with their empty threats.
Well, I blame Bob Barker. Bob Barker is responsible for this, and I'll explain to you how. Bob Barker came out to save an elephant. He raised a bunch of money. He saved an elephant.
This is the Price is Right, Bob Barker.
Correct. That led to circuses being targeted for having elephants. That led to circuses not being a good thing. That led to no place for freak shows. That led to unemployed freak shows. That led to the far left extremist, because they need a job. If he didn't save that elephant, if he didn't save that elephant, we would still have freak shows. These people would still be employed. They wouldn't be coming after us online. I think that's all true. You guys can run with that one.
It all comes
good
back
old
to
Bob.
This is like my new favorite conspiracy theory. Is there like a BitChute video I can watch on this? This has legs.
There should be now. This is where it started. This has legs. It has 4 legs, right?
I'm going to steal that as well. It's like, you know what? If we just had, if we brought back circuses, we wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah. Well done. Funny. Yeah. We needed a place for freaks to do their business and make some money. Like Barnum and Bailey employed a bunch, quite well too. If you look at the history of it, they were paid very well. Now they're keyboard people and they destroy other people's lives.
Oh, not even that. They're government employees. What do you mean? I wish they were just keyboard.
Isn't that funny how we get called gov op and all that kind of stuff, but just genuinely actual people that are employed by the government to go after people? We're not talking about that though, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I got a couple more minutes. Padge, if you have a question or two, that would be the time.
No, there's no questions. Just really enjoyed you being on, Greg. Thanks for what you do. Thanks for standing up. Yes, humor is really important. Seems to be the consensus for the last few comments for our members.
Yeah.
But no, thanks for what you're doing, and we'll be sharing out the page. I'll do it again right now. SaveFreeSpeech.ca, and I'll put that in our descriptions and everything, and push that out as well. And then if there's anything else we can do, if you want to pop on to do a promo or something, let us know, and we'll try and make that happen.
Absolutely,
yeah, for sure.
I really appreciate it, Padge, Jason, and honestly, thank you so much, because you saved me a lot of time researching and cross-referencing information about the Coots thing. I'm actually so valued. Even if this was just a private conversation and I got to hear all that information, that's you saved me so much time. Yeah, you saved me so much time. It's because there's just been so much chaos, and the fact that you can kind of distill it down to the basic principles or facts or events that happened. It's God's work what you're doing. You're taking a very complex, long saga, and we were able to touch the touch points on it, and I really appreciate that, because that is a huge part of the solution, in my opinion. Taking this complex mix of chaos and actually taking it's work. Okay, it doesn't just happen. We can't just make a sign and run out there. We need to take the work to sift through all this information and distill it, summarize it, curate it, and then share it with other people and explain it to people and be like, this is what happened. This is what's happening.
They're like what you're doing with the documentary. You know the process. You know the process.
But it really does take the hard work. How many times have you How many times have you been looking at a screen, some black and white thing, reading legal jargon, being like, I hate this. I get right.
I'll be honest. I'll answer that question. When it comes to my job, never. I actually really do enjoy it. Maybe I'm a little perverted that way. My wife's not in her head. She knows it. When it comes to having to deal with legal, for example, these idiots that are causing problems for me, defamation, death threats, that portion, I absolutely hate it. I got to go read through things about me. I got to see some nasty stuff. I got to see how much is crossing the line. I got to put it together. I got to write paragraphs about it.
So on your own personal defense, that stuff you don't like.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The Ezra lawsuit, I detest every second I have to deal with that one. Everything else that's related to my job, which I choose to follow, love it. Every second of it. I'm blessed for sure.
Okay, cool.
And I feel that way too, totally. And I also want to say thank you to you, okay, because you've been doing a lot of good work out there from the convoy and on. I'm not sure of your stuff before that, but since then, you've always been very vocal, very honest, very frank, fun. You even make it comedy. You do it in such a way that you can stay on YouTube, which is a large audience that you need to be able to reach. So all of that I commend. I couldn't stay on YouTube. Just saying Vax and Helen Gruce, boom, it's done. That's it. I couldn't do my job. But thank you for delicately navigating that so that we can reach more people. I think that's really important too. So thanks for that.
Well, I hope he doesn't get in trouble now.
It's honestly, it's actually kind of, that's a whole
crazy.
That's a whole interesting topic in itself, which is essentially during a period of time, there were very specific YouTube rules about what you could and could not say. Having to do with vaccines and COVID. And now those rules are just gone. But you're totally right. If you would have said this in the wrong time period before, it could get nuked or flagged or whatever, but that's just not the case anymore.
For sure.
But I appreciate you saying that, because I was a very intentional effort of
it's hard. It's hard. I tried twice.
I need to use code language, and it's that's a whole other topic in terms of censorship and free speech. But because in a way we don't even have free speech online in certain specific respects, right? So it's interesting times.
It's brutal. And also thanks for the comments about Coots. Tune in Friday morning. It's going to be a really good one for you to watch. It's with Donald Best. He's coming back hand in hat. He kind of overreacted to some of the things he said there. And I had dinner with him, and we talked about that one specifically because there's a lot of fallout from his comments. But he's a big enough man to realize that he didn't have all the facts yet. So Friday mornings will be Donald Best with Catherine Biak, which is Chris's lawyer. So we're going to be speaking to one of the lawyers, and Donald is going to basically be pulling the facts out of both her and I, so that it's a lot clearer on what what he meant, and so he also understands a bit more, and not necessarily roll back his statements, but at least provide us more intelligent statements at this stage. I'm not saying it's dumb, but he certainly made some blanket statements that were not fair. They weren't justified, and the facts don't support it. So Friday morning, he's going through that process. We're calling it finding facts, so that Donald can pull out of the lawyer and me all the facts he needs to make a better assessment, because his first assessment wasn't fair.
Awesome. That's Monday morning?
Friday morning.
Friday.
So 2 days.
Friday.
Yep. And there's a replay, so if you can't make the live, you can watch the replay. But that should have a whole bunch of facts coming straight from the lawyer, too. So it's not Jason's version. It's going to be Chris Carbert's lawyer's version.
Cool. Yeah. That's great. Great work what you guys are doing. It's awesome stuff.
Thanks, Greg.
And, we inspire one another, and we got to keep doing that. And I'm just a strong believer in, like, supporting the people who are really doing stuff and paying attention to the fruits of their labor. That's really how you can tell if it's somebody worth supporting. It's a good return on your time and energy and investment. So, yeah,
absolutely. And make sure everybody tunes in for Shadow on Friday, where you're going to see Greg again, and there'll be different questions and a different show. But go check out Shadow.
We're going to be talking more about the big anti-trans indoctrination protests, which are going to be happening on Friday. I might be live streaming out during that day too. Actually, I'm going to be speaking in Ottawa. Is the plan. Speaking on Parliament Hill, talking about how the war on parents, talking about how parents are systematically attacked for standing up for your children, opposing the gender ideology being taught in schools, and keeping it light, telling some jokes, making fun of the counter protesters, and promoting SaveFreeSpeech.ca in the documentary, of course. But it's there's a lot of elements that connect to free speech. And in a way, they're already trying to kill free speech. I brought this up earlier, but it's like, they already do such a good job at invoking fear in people to not say anything. But
it works too, because we do censor ourselves too, right? It's working.
It does. And we have to start fighting back against
Are you a parent? Do you have kids?
I don't still.
Okay.
Do you know anyone? No, I'm
I do actually.
Single at the moment, but
I'm sure some members right now, they're like, really? He's in Toronto? He can go to Ottawa?
I'm in Toronto.
Maybe we'll make a match there.
That's where I'm located.
Sorry for that.
No, it's all right.
Yeah, we left. Yeah, we left.
Yeah.
We were in the GTA for a long time. We met in Toronto. That's where we met. Sound Academy.
Sorry for being sorry that I live in Toronto, is what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
But let's
no
comment. Okay.
No comment. Hey, thanks again for having me, guys. Really appreciate it. I feel like we haven't even really had a proper conversation before, Jason. The only one time I hopped on your stream, it was like when I was on my cell phone when I was working up north in the winter for like 10 minutes. Yeah, because we were doing the relay with you, I think. You jumped on for part of the relay. Yeah, that was I hooked up with you on Shadow once, so we were on his show one time. Oh, okay.
I think we're talking about the East-West convoy and how silly it was.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we did that one. But yeah, I haven't had you on the show yet, so thank you very much for saying yes and coming on.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Appreciate it. And yeah, we'll be in touch.
We'll do it again.
Hopefully you'll see some of the Save Free Speech videos going viral and people will be talking about it.
That'd be great.
Yeah. Thanks again.
And
use it or lose it, right?
Be safe on Friday as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Take care, brother. Have a good day.
Thanks.